No one wanted to befriend this sick little alien girl except the human brothers. The shrill ring of the bell echoed through the alien halls of Novus Academy. Amid the scramble of tentacles, claws, and other appendages, two steady pairs of feet marched confidently into Classroom 5B. Caden and Kai Jenkins, age 6 and 8 respectively, were the only human children at the school, light years from Earth. Sons of a renowned xenobiologist, they were used to being the odd ones out, but that never dampened their spirit. If anything, it fueled their fierce loyalty to each other. As Caden slid into his seat, his dark eyes scanned the room with a mix of curiosity and caution. Kai settled beside him, giving his little brother's shoulder a quick reassuring squeeze. At the front of the class stood their teacher, a tall insectoid with shimmering green carapace, known as Mexcatilox. "Welcome back, young pupils," they trilled. "I trust you all had a pleasant rotation away from your studies." Caden suppressed a snort. Their vacation had been accompanying their parents on a research expedition to a sweltering jungle planet. But he knew better than to complain. "We have a new student joining us today," Mexcatilox continued. "I expect you all to make her feel welcome." Caden perked up at that. A new kid to potentially befriend? His interest was piqued. The door slid open, and in walked a small humanoid alien with translucent blue skin that shimmered like the ocean. Her large almond-shaped eyes darted nervously around the room. "Class, meet Xaria of the Aurelia race," Mexcatilox said. "Her family just moved here from the Crystallian sector." "Hello?" Xaria stammered, her melodic voice barely above a whisper. As all eyes turned to her, patches of frost began forming on her skin, growing up her arms. Titters and whispers spread through the class. "What's wrong with her? Is she sick? Why is she turning to ice?" Xaria looked like she wanted to melt into the floor from embarrassment. She quickly shuffled to an empty seat in the back, leaving a trail of icy footprints. Caden frowned as he watched her retreat. He knew firsthand how it felt to be the subject of alienation and crude jokes. Kai leaned over to him. "Looks like she could use a friend or two, huh?" Caden nodded, his mind already made up. As soon as class let out for lunch, he would make his move. When the lunch bell finally rang, Caden grabbed his tray and made a beeline for where Xaria sat alone, poking at her food. Kai followed close behind. "Hey there," Caden said brightly as he plopped down across from her. "I'm Caden, and this is my brother Kai. Welcome to Novus." Xaria looked up startled. Her skin began to frost over again. "Oh, thank you," she said softly, averting her gaze. "Your skin is so cool, by the way," Kai said. "Does it always do that icy thing?" "Yes, when I get nervous or scared," Xaria murmured. "It's a defense mechanism." "Well, you don't need to be nervous around us," Caden assured her with a warm smile. "We're all friends here." Xaria looked at him uncertainly, but Caden could see a tiny smile tugging at her blue lips. "Okay, friends." As they ate, the brothers regaled Xaria with dramatic tales of their adventures and misadventures on alien worlds. For the first time all day, musical giggles bubbled out of her. Watching her laugh and start to come out of her shell, Caden felt a swell of protectiveness. He silently vowed to always look out for his new fragile friend. But their budding friendship would soon be put to the test, because at that very moment, a group of older Gorland boys lumbered into the cafeteria, led by the swaggering bully Draz. Draz zeroed in on Xaria like a shark scenting blood. Well, looks like we've got ourselves a little popsicle freak," he sneered. "I think she needs to cool off, boys." Heart pounding, Caden leapt to his feet as the bullies closed in, ready to defend his new friend at all costs. Tension crackled in the cafeteria air as Draz and his gang of Gorland bullies loomed over Xaria, cruel sneers twisting their faces. The little Aurelian girl seemed to shrink into herself, frost spreading rapidly across her translucent blue skin. Caden stepped boldly in front of Xaria, his dark eyes flashing with determination. Kai flanked him, crossing his arms in a show of solidarity. "Back off, Draz," Caden said, his voice steady despite his pounding heart. "Leave her alone." Draz let out a harsh bark of laughter. "Oh, look at this, boys. The little human pipsqueaks think they can tell us what to do." He leaned in close, his hot breath ruffling Caden's hair. "I don't take orders from puny mammals like you." Kai spoke up, his tone calm but firm. "We're not trying to order you around, Draz. We're asking you to show a little decency and leave our friend in peace." Friend, Draz scoffed, eyeing Azalea with disdain. You're friends with this freak? She's not even a proper alien. She's a defective popsicle. Azalea flinched as if struck, a soft whimper escaping her lips. The frost on her skin thickened, forming jagged icicles along her arms. Caden's hands balled into fists at his sides. Rage simmered in his gut at the blatant cruelty, but he fought to keep his cool. He knew rising to Draz's bait would only make things worse. Azalea is not a freak or defective, Caden said, forcing his voice to remain level. Her ice powers are part of who she is, and they're amazing. Just because she's different doesn't give you the right to bully her. Draz's beady eyes narrowed. I have the right to do whatever I want, human, and right now I want to see if this little popsicle melts under pressure. He reached out a meaty hand towards Azalea, but Caden was faster. He caught Draz's wrist in an iron grip, glaring up at the larger alien. I said back off, Caden growled. Draz's face contorted with rage. With a roar, he wrenched his arm free and took a wild swing at Caden. Caden ducked the blow and drove his shoulder into Draz's gut, sending the bully stumbling back. Kai leapt into the fray, putting himself between the Gorlans and Azalea. The cafeteria erupted into chaos as Draz's gang surged forward. Fists and food trays flew as the human brothers fiercely defended their friend, refusing to let the bullies lay a hand on her. Azalea watched in horror as her new friends fought for her, taking hits that were meant for her. Guilt and fear twisted in her stomach. This was all her fault. If she wasn't such a freak, Caden and Kai wouldn't be in trouble. Suddenly, a booming voice cut through the mayhem. Enough! Everyone froze as Headmaster Brogax stormed into the cafeteria, his craggy face thunderous. Teachers flanked him, quickly pulling the brawling students apart. What is the meaning of this? Headmaster Brogax demanded. Draz immediately pointed a finger at the human brothers. They attacked us, sir. We were just minding our own business and they jumped us. That's a lie, Kai shouted, wiping blood from his split lip. Draz and his goons were bullying Azalea. We were defending her. The headmaster's stern gaze fell on the trembling Aurelian girl. Is this true, Azalea? Azalea swallowed hard, her voice shaking as she spoke. Yes, sir. Caden and Kai were protecting me. They're my friends. Headmaster Brogax turned to the human brothers, his expression unreadable. Caden and Kai stood tall, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. They knew they'd done the right thing. Consequences be damned. After a long, tense moment, the headmaster spoke. Draz, you and your friends will come with me to my office. We do not tolerate bullying at this school. Draz's jaw dropped. But sir, Now, Headmaster Brogax said firmly. The Gorlan boys slunk away, shooting venomous glares at the human brothers. The headmaster then addressed Caden and Kai. As for you two, fighting is also against the rules. However, I commend you for standing up for your friend. You've shown true courage and compassion today. Caden and Kai exchanged small smiles, relief washing over them. Thank you, sir, Caden said. We couldn't just stand by and let Azalea be bullied for being different. Headmaster Brogax nodded. I understand. But next time, come to a teacher first before resorting to violence, all right? Yes, sir, the brothers chorused. As the headmaster left and the cafeteria began to settle, Azalea turned to her friends with shining eyes. The frost on her skin had melted away, leaving only a soft shimmer. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. No one has ever stood up for me like that before. Caden grinned, throwing an arm around her shoulders. That's what friends are for, Azalea. We've got your back, always. Kai nodded, ruffling her silky hair. And we always will. You're stuck with us now, popsicle girl. Azalea giggled, leaning into their embrace. For the first time in her life, she felt truly accepted and loved for who she was, ice powers and all. Word of the human brothers' bravery spread quickly through the school. Suddenly, everyone wanted to be friends with the boys, who stood up to Draz and defended the shy Aurelian girl. Azalea found herself surrounded by curious classmates, all eager to get to know her better. With Caden and Kai by her side, she slowly came out of her shell, sharing her stories and laughter. The human brothers had shown the school that being different wasn't something to fear or mock, but something to celebrate. And in doing so, they'd forged an unbreakable bond with a very special friend. But their troubles with Draz were far from over. The Gorlan bully was not one to forgive or forget, and he had his sights set on revenge against the meddlesome humans and their frosty friend. As Caden, Kai, and Azalea left the cafeteria, arms linked and hearts light, They had no idea that their greatest challenge was yet to come. The excitement in Classroom 5B was palpable as Mexiko and Tylox announced the upcoming field trip to the icy planet of Frostaria. The students buzzed with anticipation, eager to explore a new world and put their learning into practice. Caden, Kai, and Azalea exchanged grins as they were assigned to the same project group. They would be studying the unique properties of Frostaria's eternal ice and how the native species adapted to the harsh environment. "This is perfect for you, Azalea," Kai said, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "You'll fit right in on an ice planet." Azalea ducked her head shyly, a small smile playing on her lips. "I guess so. I've never been to a place where everyone is like me." Caden bumped her shoulder gently. "Hey, there's no one quite like you, Azalea, and that's what makes you special." As the trio began planning their project, they failed to notice the dark look Draz shot their way. The Gorland bully had been stewing in his anger and humiliation since the cafeteria incident, plotting his revenge. And now, with the field trip coming up, he saw the perfect opportunity to make the human brothers and their little popsicle friend pay. The day of the field trip arrived, and the students boarded the sleek spacecraft that would take them to Frostaria. Caden, Kai, and Azalea claimed a set of seats together, buzzing with excitement. As the ship broke through the atmosphere and the icy landscape of Frostaria came into view, Azalea pressed her face to the window, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's beautiful," she breathed, taking in the glittering expanses of snow and towering glaciers. Kai grinned, slinging an arm around her shoulders. "Just like you, popsicle girl." Azalea blushed, her cheeks turning a deeper shade of blue. Caden chuckled, shaking his head at his brother's antics. The spacecraft landed on a flat expanse of ice, and the students disembarked, bundled up in thick thermal suits. Mexiko led them to a research station where they would be staying for the duration of the trip. As they settled into their quarters, Caden noticed Draz and his gang whispering in a corner, casting furtive glances their way. A sense of unease prickled at the back of his neck, but he shook it off. They were here to learn and have fun, not worry about some petty bully. The next day, the project group set out to explore the icy wilderness and gather data for their assignments. Caden, Kai, and Azalea trekked through the snow, marveling at the glittering ice formations and the strange, crystalline plants that sprouted from the frozen ground. Azalea was in her element, her icy powers allowing her to move easily across the treacherous terrain. She showed her friends how to spot the signs of life beneath the snow, and they collected samples of the unique flora and fauna. As they worked, Caden couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He kept catching glimpses of movement out of the corner of his eye, but whenever he turned to look, there was nothing there. Kai noticed his brother's unease. "What's up, Cade? You look like you've seen a ghost." Caden frowned, scanning the icy landscape. "I don't know. I just feel like someone's following us." Azalea paused, her brow furrowing. "I feel it too, like there's something out there watching us." Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the air. The trio spun around to see a massive fissure opening up in the ice behind them, cutting off their path back to the research station. Kai's eyes widened. "What the—" Before he could finish his sentence, a dark shape burst from the snow at their feet. Caden yelled in surprise, stumbling back as a snarling ice beast lunged at him, its razor-sharp claws slashing through the air. Azalea screamed, instinctively throwing up her hands. A blast of icy energy shot from her palms, striking the creature in the chest and sending it flying back into the snow. More beasts emerged from the ice, their eyes glowing with a feral hunger. The trio found themselves surrounded, cut off from any escape. "What are these things?" Kai shouted, his voice tight with fear. "I don't know," Caden said grimly, grabbing a nearby icicle to use as a makeshift weapon. "But they don't look friendly." The beast circled them, snarling and snapping their jaws. Azalea stood frozen, her eyes wide with terror. Caden glanced at her, his heart clenching. He knew she was their best chance at getting out of this alive, but he hated putting that kind of pressure on her. "Azalea," he said softly, reaching out to take her hand. "I know you're scared, but we need you. Your powers are the only thing that can stop these creatures." Azalea swallowed hard, tears glistening in her eyes. I can't. I'm not strong enough." Kai grabbed her other hand, squeezing it tightly. "Yes, you are. You're the strongest person we know, Azalea. You can do this." Azalea looked between her friends, drawing strength from their unwavering belief in her. She took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll try." As the beast lunged, Xaria thrust out her hands, unleashing a massive wave of icy energy. The creatures were blasted back, their bodies shattering into a million glittering shards. Caden and Kai whooped in triumph, pulling Xaria into a tight hug. She sagged against them, exhausted but elated. "You did it, Xaria," Kai crowed. "You saved us." Xaria managed a weak smile. "I couldn't have done it without you two. Your faith in me gave me the strength I needed." Caden grinned, ruffling her hair. "That's what friends are for, Popsicle Girl." But their celebration was short-lived. As they turned to find a way back to the research station, they spotted a familiar figure standing at the edge of the fissure. Draz. The Gorlan boy sneered at them, his eyes glittering with malice. Well, looks like you three survived after all. Too bad your luck's about to run out." Caden's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about, Draz?" Draz held up a small device, his finger hovering over a button. "You see, I sabotaged your equipment. One press of this button, and your thermal suits will shut down, leaving you to freeze to death in this icy wasteland." Kai gasped. "You wouldn't!" Draz's grin turned cruel. "Watch me." He pressed the button, and the trio's suits went dead, the heat leaching out of them in an instant. The cold hit them like a physical blow, stealing the breath from their lungs. Xaria staggered, her body already beginning to frost over. Caden and Kai huddled around her, trying to shield her from the biting wind. Draz laughed, the sound harsh and grating. "Goodbye, humans. It's been fun." With that, he turned and strode away, leaving them to their fate. Caden gritted his teeth, fighting against the numbness spreading through his limbs. He refused to give up, refused to let Draz win. "We have to keep moving," he said, his voice shaking with the cold. "We have to find shelter." Kai nodded, his face pale and pinched. "Xaria, can you use your powers to create an ice cave or something?" Xaria blinked slowly, her eyelashes crusted with frost. I think so." She raised her hands, her movement sluggish and clumsy. A shimmering wall of ice rose from the ground, forming a small, cramped shelter around them. The trio huddled together, shivering violently as the cold seeped into their bones. Caden pulled Xaria close, rubbing her arms to try and generate some warmth. "Stay with us, Xaria," he chattered. "We'll get through this." Azalea's head lolled against his shoulder, her eyes fluttering shut. "I'm so tired, Caden." Kai grabbed her hand, squeezing it tightly. "Don't you dare give up on us, Popsicle Girl. We need you." Xaria forced her eyes open, meeting her friends' gazes. She saw the fear and desperation in their faces, but also the unwavering love and determination. They needed her, and she needed them. With a shuddering breath, Xaria pushed herself upright. She closed her eyes, reaching deep within herself for the last reserves of her strength. A soft blue glow began to emanate from her skin, growing brighter and brighter until it filled the small ice cave with a pulsing, ethereal light. Caden and Kai gasped as they felt warmth begin to seep back into their bodies, chasing away the deadly chill. They watched in awe as Azalea's power flowed through them, strengthening them, sustaining them. Outside the cave, the wind howled and the snow swirled, but inside they were safe and warm, protected by the unbreakable bond of their friendship. They huddled together, drawing comfort and strength from each other as they waited for rescue, secure in the knowledge that as long as they had each other, they could face anything, even the coldest of hearts. The harrowing ordeal on Frostaria had left its mark on Caden, Kai, and Xaria. They had faced death and come out stronger, their bond forged in the crucible of adversity, but it had also opened their eyes to the cruelty and prejudice that still lurked in the hearts of some of their classmates. Draz's actions, born of hatred and jealousy, had shown them that there was still much work to be done in creating a truly accepting and inclusive school community. Inspired by Azalea's bravery and the way she had overcome her fears and insecurities, Caden and Kai decided it was time to take a stand. They approached Headmaster Brogax with a proposal, a new club dedicated to promoting acceptance, diversity, and anti-bullying. They would call it the Unity Club, a place where students of all races, abilities, and backgrounds could come together and support each other. To their surprise, the headmaster readily agreed. "I think it's a wonderful idea," he said, his craggy face softening with a smile. "After what happened on Frostaria, It's clear that we need to do more to foster a culture of respect and understanding among our students. With the headmaster's blessing, Caden and Kai set about recruiting members for their new club. They started with their own classmates, reaching out to those who had been kind to Xaria and stood up against Draz's bullying. To their delight, many of their classmates were eager to join. They had seen the way Caden and Kai had befriended Xaria and defended her, and they wanted to be a part of something that promoted those values. Even some of the students who had initially been wary of Xaria's differences came around, apologizing for their past behavior and asking to join the Unity Club as a way of making amends. Xaria was touched by the outpouring of support. For the first time in her life, she felt truly accepted and valued for who she was. She threw herself into helping Caden and Kai plan activities and events for the club, her confidence growing with each passing day. But not everyone was happy about the Unity Club's formation. There were still those who clung to their prejudices, who saw Xaria and others like her as freaks and outsiders. Chief among them was Draz. The Gorlan bully had been suspended for his actions on Fostoria, but he had returned to school with a chip on his shoulder and a vendetta against the trio who had humiliated him. He began to actively work against the Unity Club, spreading rumors and lies about its members and trying to turn other students against them. He even went so far as to vandalize the club's meeting room, scrawling hateful messages on the walls. Caden and Kai were furious when they discovered the vandalism. They wanted to confront Draz directly, but Xaria held them back. "Fighting hate with hate won't solve anything," she said softly, her icy blue eyes shining with wisdom beyond her years. "We have to show him and the others that there's a better way." Inspired by her words, the brothers came up with a plan. They invited Draz to attend a Unity Club meeting, extending the offer in front of the entire school so he couldn't refuse without losing face. Draz showed up to the meeting with a sneer on his face, clearly expecting some kind of trap or ambush. But instead, he found himself welcomed with open arms and treated with kindness and respect. The club members took turns sharing their stories, talking about the challenges they had faced and the ways in which they had overcome them. They spoke of the power of friendship, of the strength that came from embracing each other's differences. As Draz listened, his sneer slowly faded, replaced by a look of confusion and then grudgingly, respect. He had never been shown such compassion before, never been treated as an equal by those he had considered beneath him. When it was his turn to speak, Draz found himself at a loss for words. He looked around at the faces of the students he had bullied and tormented, seeing them in a new light. I'm sorry," he said at last, his voice gruff with emotion. "I've been a real jerk to all of you. I thought I was better than you, but I was wrong. You're all stronger and braver than I could ever be." Caden and Kai exchanged a look of surprise and then smiled, reaching out to shake Draz's hand. "Apology accepted," Caden said. "We all make mistakes. What matters is that we learn from them and try to do better." Xaria stepped forward, her icy skin glittering under the lights. "We forgive you, Draz, and we hope you'll join us in spreading the message of unity and acceptance." Draz hesitated for a moment, then nodded, a genuine smile spreading across his face. I'd like that a lot." From that day forward, Draz became one of the Unity Club's most vocal supporters, using his influence to bring more students into the fold and stand up against bullying and prejudice. The club's membership swelled, and soon it seemed like the entire school was united under the banner of acceptance and friendship. Caden, Kai, and Xaria watched with pride as their classmates learned to celebrate each other's differences, to see the beauty and strength in diversity. They knew that there would always be challenges and obstacles to overcome, that true change took time and effort. But they also knew that they had started something special, something that would continue to grow and thrive long after they had graduated. And at the heart of it all was the unbreakable bond between two human brothers and the shy, icy alien girl they had befriended. A bond that had started with a simple act of kindness and grown into a force that could change the world. As they sat together in the Unity Club's meeting room, surrounded by the laughter and chatter of their friends, Caden turned to Xaria with a smile. "You know, Popsicle Girl, none of this would have been possible without you," he said softly. "You showed us what it means to be brave, to stand up for what's right even when it's hard." Xaria ducked her head, a blush tinting her icy cheeks. "I couldn't have done it without you two," she said. "You believed in me when no one else did. You gave me the courage to be myself." Kai grinned, throwing an arm around her shoulders. "That's what friends are for, Xaria. We'll always have your back, no matter what." And as they looked out at the sea of smiling faces before them, at the unity and love that they had helped to create, they knew that they had found something truly special. A friendship that could melt even the coldest of hearts. The news hit Caden and Kai like a punch to the gut. Xaria was moving back to her home planet, light years away from the life she had built at Novus Academy. They had known this day might come, but they had never truly been prepared for it. Over the past year, Xaria had become more than just their best friend. She was a part of their family, a sister in all but blood. The thought of losing her was almost too much to bear. Xaria, for her part, was torn. She had always known that her time at Novus Academy was temporary, that eventually her parents would finish their work on the station and return to their homeworld. But she had never imagined how hard it would be to say goodbye to the life she had built here, to the friends who had become her anchor in a strange and often hostile universe. Caden and Kai tried to put on a brave face for her, to hide the depth of their own pain and fear. They threw themselves into helping her pack, into savoring every last moment they had together. But as the days ticked down to Xaria's departure, they could feel a growing sense of desperation taking hold, a need to find some way, any way, to keep their friend by their side. It was Kai who first voiced the idea late one night as they lay awake in their bunks, unable to sleep for the thought of the coming separation. "What if we went with her?" he whispered into the darkness, his voice trembling with a mix of hope and uncertainty. Caden sat up, his heart pounding in his chest. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if we asked our parents to let us go with Xaria to finish our schooling on her home planet? We could stay together, the three of us, just like we've always been." For a moment, Caden couldn't speak, his mind reeling with the possibilities. It was a crazy idea, he knew that. Their parents would never agree to it, and even if they did, there was no guarantee that they would be allowed to enroll in school on Xaria's world. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that he didn't care. He would do anything, risk anything, to stay by Xaria's side. "Let's do it," he said at last, his voice firm with conviction. "Let's talk to our parents tomorrow. We have to at least try." But their parents, as it turned out, were not so easily swayed. They listened to their son's impassioned pleas with a mix of sympathy and concern, but in the end, they couldn't bring themselves to agree. "Boys, we understand how much Xaria means to you," their father said gently, his eyes soft with compassion. "But you have to understand, this is not a decision we can make lightly. Xaria's world is very different from ours, and there's no guarantee that you would be safe there, or that you would be able to continue your education." "But we can't just let her go," Kai cried, his voice cracking with emotion. "She needs us, and we need her. We're a team, the three of us. We belong together." Their mother sighed, reaching out to pull her sons into a tight embrace. "I know it feels that way now," she murmured, stroking their hair. "But sometimes life takes us in different directions, and we have to find a way to stay connected even when we're apart." Caden and Kai clung to their mother, hot tears stinging their eyes. They knew she was right, but that didn't make the pain any easier to bear. In the end, they had no choice but to accept the inevitable. Xaria was leaving, and they couldn't follow. The day of her departure was a blur of tears and hugs, of promises to stay in touch and vows of eternal friendship. Xaria clung to Caden and Kai until the very last moment, her icy skin slick with tears. "I'll never forget you," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "You're my best friends, my brothers. No matter where I go, no matter how far apart we are, that will never change." Caden and Kai held her close, their own tears mingling with hers. "We'll always be here for you, Popsicle Girl," Caden murmured, "no matter what." And then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd of departing passengers, her shimmering blue form swallowed up by the sea of bodies. For a long time after she left, Caden and Kai felt like they were sleepwalking through their days, going through the motions of school and life, without really feeling anything. The Unity Club helped, giving them a sense of purpose and connection even in Xaria's absence. They threw themselves into planning events and outreach programs, into spreading the message of acceptance and kindness that Xaria had embodied so fully. But still, there was a hole in their lives where she had been, a constant ache that never quite went away. They talked to her as often as they could, spending hours huddled over the comm link in their room, trading stories and jokes and tears across the vast reaches of space. But it wasn't the same as having her there, as being able to reach out and touch her icy skin or hear her musical laughter in person. As the weeks turned into months, Caden and Kai began to worry that the distance would prove too much for their friendship, that the bond they had forged would slowly fade away, worn down by time and space. But Xaria refused to let that happen. She sent them constant updates and messages, little reminders of her love and support, even from light years away. She told them about her new school, about the friends she was making and the challenges she was facing. She sent them pictures of her family and her home, of the icy landscapes and glittering cities of her world. And always, always, she reminded them of the promise they had made, the vow to stay connected no matter what. "You're my anchor," she told them once, her voice soft and earnest over the comlink. "No matter how far I drift, I know I can always find my way back to you." Caden and Kai clung to those words like a lifeline, a reminder that their friendship was stronger than any distance, any obstacle. They began to plan for the future, for a time when they could be reunited once more. They talked of taking a gap year after graduation, of saving up their credits for a trip to Xaria's world. They dreamed of exploring the icy caves and crystal cities together, of introducing Xaria to their family and showing her all the wonders of their own home. And always they held tight to the memory of their time together, to the laughter and tears and triumphs they had shared. They knew that their story was far from over, that there were still chapters yet to be written in the epic tale of their friendship. But for now, they took comfort in the knowledge that no matter how far apart they were, they would always be connected by the unbreakable bonds of love and loyalty. Xaria might be gone from their daily lives, but she would never be gone from their hearts. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The day started like any other at Novus Academy. Caden and Kai walked the familiar halls, the weight of Xaria's absence still heavy in their hearts, even after all this time. They had learned to live with the ache, to find joy and purpose in their studies, in their work with the Unity Club. But still, there were moments when the pain of missing her hit them like a fresh wound, raw and throbbing. As they settled into their seats in classroom 5B, the brothers exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement of the empty chair beside them where Xaria used to sit. But before they could dwell on the past for too long, a sudden commotion at the door snapped them to attention. Max Katilox was speaking to someone just outside the room, their voice uncharacteristically animated. The students craned their necks, trying to catch a glimpse of the visitor. And then, like a dream made real, Xaria stepped into the classroom. For a moment, Caden and Kai could only stare, their hearts pounding in their chests. She looked different, taller and more poised, her icy skin glittering under the lights. But when she turned to face them, her smile was the same, warm and bright and achingly familiar. "Surprise!" she said, her voice trembling with barely contained excitement. In an instant, Caden and Kai were out of their seats, racing across the room to sweep Xaria into a bone-crushing hug. They held her close, tears streaming down their faces as they babbled incoherently, a jumble of "I missed you" and "I can't believe you're here," and "Don't ever leave us again." Xaria laughed, her own tears mingling with theirs as she clung to them just as tightly. "I missed you too," she whispered. "Every single day." It was only when Miss Katilox gently cleared their throat that the trio finally broke apart, wiping their eyes and grinning like fools. "Class, as you can see, we have a very special visitor today," the teacher said, their mandibles twitching with amusement. "Xaria will be joining us for the next few weeks as part of an exchange program between our schools." The room erupted into cheers and applause, the other students crowding around Xaria to welcome her back. Caden and Kai couldn't stop smiling, their hearts so full they felt like they might burst. Having Xaria back, even for a little while, was like a dream come true. But as the initial excitement wore off and they settled back into their seats, the brothers began to notice something strange. Xaria wasn't alone. Hovering at the edge of the group was another alien, one they had never seen before. He was tall and slender, with iridescent green skin and eyes that sparkled like diamonds. When Xaria caught sight of him, her face lit up in a way that made Caden's stomach twist with an unfamiliar emotion. "Oh, I almost forgot," she said, beckoning the stranger over. "Caden, Kai, this is Lyrian. He's my best friend from back home." The words hit Caden like a punch to the gut. Best friend? But he and Kai were Xaria's best friends. They had always been her best friends. He forced a smile onto his face as Lyrian approached, extending a hand in greeting. "Nice to meet you," he said, hoping his voice didn't betray the sudden tightness in his throat. Kai, too, looked slightly shell-shocked, but he managed a weak grin as he shook Lyrian's hand. "Welcome to Novus Academy." Lyrian smiled, his teeth a dazzling white against his emerald skin. "Thank you," he said, his voice like honey. "Xaria has told me so much about you both. I feel like I know you already." Caden and Kai exchanged a glance, a flicker of unease passing between them. They had never heard Xaria mention Illyrian before, not in all the long hours they had spent talking over the comlink. But before they could dwell on it for too long, Mex K. Tylox called the class to order, and they had no choice but to take their seats and try to focus on the lesson. As the day wore on, however, it became increasingly clear that Lyrian was no ordinary friend. He was charming and witty, with a quick smile and a silver tongue that seemed to win over everyone he met. He had a way of making even the most mundane topics seem fascinating, of drawing people in with his easy charisma. Even the teachers seemed to fall under his spell, praising his insights and marveling at his intelligence. But it was his effect on Xaria that troubled Caden and Kai the most. She seemed to light up whenever Lyrian was around, laughing at his jokes and hanging on his every word. They had an easy rapport, a natural chemistry that made Caden's heart ache with something that felt dangerously close to jealousy. He tried to push the feeling down, to remind himself that Xaria was allowed to have other friends, that he and Kai didn't have a monopoly on her affection. But as the days turned into weeks, and Lyrian's presence became more and more entrenched in their lives, Caden found it harder and harder to keep his doubts at bay. He watched as Lyrian charmed the Unity Club with his tales of activism and social justice back on his home planet, as he won over the school with his dazzling displays of athletic prowess and artistic talent. He listened as Xaria gushed about Lyrian's kindness and intelligence, about the way he always seemed to know just what to say to make her feel better. And with each passing day, Caden felt like he was losing her all over again, like the special bond they had shared was slowly being eroded by Lyrian's effortless charisma. Kai, too, seemed to be struggling with the new dynamic. He grew quieter and more withdrawn, spending more and more time alone in their room, his eyes dark with an emotion Caden couldn't quite name. They tried to talk to Xaria about it, to express their concerns and their fears. But every time they brought up Lyrian, she would just smile and shake her head, insisting that they were being silly, that there was nothing to worry about. "Lyrian is just a friend," she would say, her eyes soft with affection. "You two will always be my best friends, no matter what." But as much as Caden wanted to believe her, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had fundamentally shifted, that the easy, unshakable bond they had once shared had been forever altered by Lyrian's arrival. It all came to a head one afternoon when Caden and Kai walked into the Unity Club meeting to find Xaria and Lyrian huddled together in a corner, their heads bent close as they whispered and giggled. Something inside Caden snapped, a dam of emotions bursting free. He stormed over to them, his hands balled into fists at his sides. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice tight with barely contained anger. Xaria looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. "Caden, what?" But he cut her off, his words spilling out in a rush of hurt and frustration. "I thought we were your best friends, Xaria. But ever since Lyrian showed up, it's like we don't even exist anymore. Like all those years of friendship meant nothing." Kai stepped up beside him, his own face etched with pain. "We missed you so much when you left," he said softly. "We thought about you every single day, but now it feels like you've forgotten all about us." Xaria's eyes filled with tears, her lower lip trembling. "That's not true," she whispered. "I could never forget about you. You're my family." But Lyrian stepped forward, his eyes flashing with a sudden, unexpected anger. "Maybe if you two weren't so clingy and insecure, Xaria wouldn't feel the need to find other friends," he snapped. Caden reeled back as if he had been slapped, his heart shattering into a million pieces. Beside him, Kai let out a choked sob, his face crumpling with grief. For a moment, the four of them just stared at each other, the weight of Lyrian's words hanging heavy in the air. And then Xaria spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Lyrian, that was uncalled for," she said, her gaze never leaving Caden and Kai's faces. "Caden and Kai are my best friends, and nothing will ever change that. Not even you." She turned to the brothers, her eyes shining with love and regret. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never meant to make you feel like you didn't matter to me. You are everything to me, and I promise I will never let anything come between us again." And with that, she pulled them into a fierce hug, her icy skin cool against their tear-stained cheeks. As they clung to each other, Caden felt the knot of fear and insecurity inside him begin to loosen, replaced by a warm, glowing certainty. Xaria loved them, and that love was stronger than any challenge, any obstacle. They were a team, a family, and nothing could ever tear them apart. Not even a charming, talented alien with a dazzling smile and a silver tongue. Because in the end, the bond they shared was unbreakable, forged in the fire of friendship and tempered by the unshakable power of love. And that was a force that could never be defeated. The weeks following Lyrian's revelation were a whirlwind of activity and emotion for Caden, Kai, and Xaria. The three friends found themselves at the center of a storm as the school authorities launched an investigation into Lyrian's actions and the true nature of his intentions. Through it all, the trio clung to each other, drawing strength from their unbreakable bond. They spent long hours huddled together, whispering words of comfort and encouragement, reminding each other that they would weather this crisis as they had weathered so many others, together. "I'm so sorry," Xaria said one day, her voice trembling with emotion. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I never wanted to put you two in danger." Caden reached out and took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "You have nothing to apologize for, Xaria. Lyrian's choices are his own. You couldn't have known what he was planning." Kai nodded, his dark eyes fierce with determination. "We're in this together, Popsicle Girl. No matter what happens, we've got your back. Always." Xaria smiled then, a watery, grateful smile that made Caden's heart ache with love and pride. "I don't know what I did to deserve friends like you," she whispered. "You didn't have to do anything," Caden said softly. "You're our best friend, Xaria. That's all that matters." In the end, the truth came out, and Lyrian's schemes were exposed for all to see. He had come to Novus Academy with a hidden agenda, seeking to exploit Xalia's unique powers for his own gain. But he had underestimated the strength of her friendship with Caden and Kai, the unshakable loyalty that bound them together. As the dust settled and life at the academy began to return to normal, the trio found themselves the center of a new kind of attention. Their classmates looked at them with a newfound respect and admiration, marveling at the courage and devotion they had shown in the face of adversity. "You guys are like real-life superheroes," one girl gushed, her eyes wide with awe. "The way you stood up to Lyrian and protected Xaria, it was incredible." Caden felt his cheeks flush with embarrassment, but Kai just grinned, slinging an arm around Xalia's shoulders. "Nah," he said, his voice filled with warmth and affection. "We're just a couple of kids who got lucky enough to have the best friend in the whole universe." Xaria ducked her head, her icy skin shimmering with a soft, happy glow. "I'm the lucky one," she said softly. "I have you too." And as they walked through the halls of Novus Academy, the human brothers and the alien girl, Caden knew that he would never take this feeling for granted, this sense of belonging and purpose that filled his heart to bursting. He knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever obstacles they might face, they would face them together, united by the unbreakable bonds of friendship and love. The years passed in a blur of laughter and learning, of growth and change and the constant, steady beat of friendship. Caden, Kai, and Xaria grew from children to teenagers, their bodies and minds stretching and expanding like the universe itself. They faced the trials and tribulations of adolescence together, navigating the rocky terrain of first crushes and final exams, of changing dreams and shifting priorities. Through it all, their friendship remained in a constant, a North Star guiding them through the darkness. And when the time came to say goodbye to Novus Academy, to take the next step in their journey, they did so with hearts full of gratitude and eyes bright with anticipation. "Can you believe it's really over?" Xaria asked, her voice soft with wonder as they stood together on the stage, diplomas clutched in their hands. Kai shook his head, a wistful smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "It's not over," he said. "It's just the beginning." Caden nodded, feeling the weight of the future pressing against his chest, a sweet, exhilarating pressure. "We've got our whole lives ahead of us," he said, "and we'll face it all together, just like we always have." Xaria reached out, taking their hands in hers, her icy skin cool and familiar against their palms. "Promise me something," she said, her eyes shining with emotion. "Promise me that no matter what happens, no matter where we go or what we do, we'll always be friends, that we'll always be there for each other." Caden and Kai exchanged a glance, their hearts swelling with love and certainty. "We promise," they said in unison, their voices ringing out clear and strong. And as they stood there hand in hand, the human brothers and the alien girl, they knew that they were ready for whatever lay ahead. They had each other, and that was all they needed. The future was bright, and it was theirs for the taking.